In addition to royal statues, the central atrium houses many stone sarcophagi. That of Meneptah, son of Ramesses II, shows the pharaoh protected by Isis, the funeral goddess, the wife and sister of Osiris, who stretches her hands over his head. On the opposite side, the goddess Nut, whose starry robe recalls her role as goddess of the firmament, extends her arms to protect the wooden sarcophagus, which was placed inside. These small blocks of black granite, which nevertheless weigh several tons, are called pyramidions. They were placed at the top of the royal pyramids during the Old and Middle Kingdom. They feature the names of the pharaohs buried there, and prayers to facilitate his passage to the afterlife. These pyramids were later used for the tops of obelisks. The permanence of Egyptian art is fascinating. This sarcophagus, known as an anthropod sarcophagus, in the shape of a human body, was made during the Sete period, around the 7th-6th century BC. This form had been in use for at least 1,000 years. In the side corridor of this atrium, there are many statues on display, such as this cube-shaped statue, certainly portraying a high-ranking official and worshipper of the goddess Hathor, recognizable by her cow horns. The large hall preceding the central atrium is a distribution point for the different main branches of the museum. Its pillars are decorated with colossal statues, and the entrance to a side gallery presents one of the most famous objects of the museum because of its age. In fact, this statue is nearly 4,700 years old. It portrays the pharaoh Djoser, one of the earliest identified kings of Egypt, and was found in the temple near his pyramid at Saqqara, one of the great burial sites to the south of Cairo. The statue is painted, and its eyes are inlaid with semi-precious stones. In another corner, there is a double homage to Jean-François Champollion, a copy of the Rosetta Stone, kept in the British Museum. Is placed next to a bust of the scholar. It was through the comparison of the 3 types of text written on the stele that he was able to understand the hieroglyphic system and decipher the first symbols in the early 1820s. He thus opened the way for a much better understanding of Egyptian civilization. Most of the known Egyptian works were discovered in tombs, so you should always think of them in a sacred context, like this so-called reserved head. It was meant to help the spirit of the dead man to recognize his body when he returned from the other world. The same goes for this statue of a scribe, discovered at Saqqara in the Old Kingdom necropolis, which dates back to the 3rd millennium BC. With his attention fixed on what his master dictates, his hand ready to write, this civil servant has been performing his duties for more than 4,500 years. There are also statues evoking the Ka, a kind of double of the human soul that gives life to the body and has its own priest. This was the function of the Ka Emked in Saqqara, around 2500 BC.